Thanks for tuning in. You are listening to Conversations with the Citizen.
Hello, and welcome to another week of Get Your House in Order. I'm your host, Bren Sheriff. The information provided on this podcast is not intended to be legal advice, but to inform you of the importance of getting your house in order by making a plan that will establish and protect your legacy. We encourage you to seek a professional who can speak to you on your individual situation. If you need help with anything discussed during this podcast, you can give me a call at 773-817-0601. On today's show, we will be discussing career opportunities. And I am very pleased this afternoon to have as my guest the famed star of stage and screen, the CEO and founder of Flightline Systems, LLC. His name is James McCoy. I almost got too familiar. I almost called him Jim. And how are you this afternoon?
I am doing very well, Mr. Sharif and guests and the Garth family here at Citizens Podcast. I'm very pleased to be here and to talk over something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is aviation.
I just met this young man a few weeks ago. He introduced me to something I didn't even know that was existing, and I'm hoping it's going to help you, and particularly with your children and or your grandchildren. He has come up with a program that helps to familiarize younger people with the career opportunities in aviation. He is a former Marine. He was an aviator in the Marines. I'm seeing your wings. Give me some information on how you made that decision last year in 2025 to found Flightline.
Yes, ma'am. It'd be my pleasure. So I think the vision for Flightline system started maybe about brewing in my mind about 10 years ago. Okay. I was working for DOD, and as I mentioned,
DOD, Department of Defense.
I apologize. Where I worked as an engineer for almost 18 years, or just at 18 years. And prior to that, I spent 12 years as a pilot in the United States Marine Corps. So all in all, I have combined 30 years of aviation experience. So maybe about 10 years ago, I saw an opportunity at some point. I'm going to transition from, my full-time employment working for someone else to a position of wanting to use the experience in aviation and my enthusiasm for aviation for the benefit of others.
And that's a wonderful thing. In this time of not knowing what to do and not knowing how to do, I tell folks, if you have a skill and you have a passion, just look at various vocations. It is possibly an opportunity that what you like to do and what you want to do can be in areas that you never even thought about. So have you had those kind of experiences in your career where you see people that may have gotten a bachelor in science in whatever that school was that they were in that had not thought about applying the skills and their skills and passions in the field of aviation?
Absolutely, and I think that's a fantastic question. And I'll answer a question I think you started early on in this discussion, which is what was really the genesis. I thought you were going with becoming an aviator, period. And I have to give credit to James McCoy Sr., my dad. He was in the Air Force for several years. He was a power plants technician, and he gave both my brother and myself, I think, the joy and the spirit of aviation. He would take us to airports early on Saturday mornings, and we would just watch aircraft take off and land. It became a very, I think, deeply planted seed. He would also buy us, he subscribed us to airport or airplane monthly subscriptions where we would get model kits in the mail and have to put them together once a month. And I think for the first 4 or 5 months, he had a plan. He helped my brother and I put them together. And then after that, we were kind of on our own. And he was watching, I think, to see what the interest level was. And we continued to put them together on our own. And it really became a fascination in learning about the nuances of wings and wing shapes and what do they do, to really wanting to do that at some point in my later life. And then from there, of course, high school, and then where there was no aviation program there at my high school, or former high school, but then college. There was an aviation program at my college, which was the impetus for me going to it. And then after that, joined the Marine Corps.
Okay, wonderful. From child's play, you have a vocation today.
Mm-hmm.
That is a wonderful way of looking at things, because I tell people, if you have a passion for something, money is going to follow that, because I believe that all things are ideas, and all ideas come from a divine being, and if that's implanted in you, that's what you're going to grow. You can't expect potatoes if you got tomatoes planted in you. And so what we have not done as a people is to open our hearts and open our minds to that directional guidance that those inner passions are. I think what we do is maybe look outside and see what's happening, and if that appears to be going on, we try to force ourselves into those things, i.e., people all want to be rappers, because that's where the big money is, and people want to be entertainers in sports, because that's where they see the progress. They have not done that inner vision and have not had a adult to help forge that is inside, to cultivate an interest as your father did. I think that is wonderful. That child's play has made you the man you are today. Sound like a rapper, don't it?
It's very poetic, and it almost put me in the mindset of Muhammad Ali.
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
Float like a butterfly,
Sting like a bee.
Rumble, young man rumble. And he was a man of conviction, I might add, that has nothing to do with aviation itself,
Yes.
but really, truly a leader in our community. So to your point, part of my charter in my existing business is to expose the wonderful field and diverse field of aviation to young people who, to your point and credit, might not necessarily be immediately exposed to it or have someone to shepherd those opportunities to them. There are a multitude of job opportunities that are awaiting our young people, to include the aviation industry, and I'd like to be part of, again, maybe nurturing in whatever capacity I can, that seed in a young person's mind about what they can do when it comes to aviation. Aviation represents in our nation's economy about roughly 5 to 5.2% of its GDP.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
huge
That
chunk of
is
change.
huge.
We're talking over $1 trillion. And so over the next few years, the aviation industry has said that they're going to be looking for about 700,000 jobs. So we should not be to the point where we're waiting at the last minute for someone to train or decide that they're, again, to your point, excited or interested in aviation, when we have the opportunity right now to expose them to the different opportunities so that they can plan and map out an academic career and pursue that and be engaged in that and get the support from their immediate support group that can help put them in the best possible position to land that career, not a job, but a career in aviation.
And speaking of planning your work and working your plan, I became aware of your program when you planted seeds in the south suburbs out in Lansing. For some of you, you may not know that Lansing has an airport, and this is where your event was held. Tell me a little bit about that planting of the seeds to those, I think it was middle school and high school students?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. So my business started in the summer of 2025, and I approached, as part of my business plan, several different municipal airports to include Lansing Airport. And Lansing was kind enough to have discussions with me about how I might be able to help them advance their already existing vision led by the mayor there in Lansing, Mayor Brian Hardy. So we sat down, we had some discussions, and he said, James, I think your small firm, and it is small, has a place here and can help us with better integrating airport operations with the community and vice versa, the community with the airport, because many people drive right past the airport and don't even realize it exists. So we're trying to improve that, and as I mentioned in a couple different discussions before, there are 2 levels right now to this. The first level is certainly with schools, because he wants to make sure, he being the mayor, wants to make sure that our young people know that they have an airport and a community that supports them in terms of advancing exposure to aviation careers. And so that's the first step. The second step is more of the social and the business opportunity there for the airport, and we're just getting started a little bit with that. So to go back to the event, we held an event back on the 30th of April. That was a Thursday evening, when we invited 10 to 12 guests that represented a diverse set of skills within the aviation community to come and speak to our young people and show them that they can do it too, and talk to them about the specifics of their job. We had Lewis University come, and I should also mention I'm an adjunct professor at Lewis University, where I teach air transportation. We had Governor State University come and talk about drone training. We had a fantastic drone employment group called FFG come out and talk about and give drone demonstrations to our young people, and they were fascinated by that. We had Tuskegee Next come out and talk about scholarship opportunities for our young people should they decide they want to become pilots. And they brought out simulators, which were the bee's knees of the day. I think a lesson learned from that is we need to give them more time to experience the flight simulations. We had some groups that do engine repair, like powered by Blueprint, and we had the 99s come out, which is an all-ladies pilot group that talks about, not just talk about it, but they are pilots, and they do race derbies each year. And its inception was back during the Amelia Earhart era, and they have been kicking butt ever since.
Is that where you have a plane flies from one? It's almost like relay racing. Is it almost like relay racing where you touch down and fly, touch down, fly?
It is almost verbatim as
and
you
they're
described.
still and they're still doing that
Every year. As a matter of fact, this October they're going to have their air race at Lansing Airport, and we're excited about that.
Okay, wonderful. In the careers, and you kind of gave us some insight into that. You said there are going to be 700,000 job opportunities available within. Give me
within the aviation industry, and so those careers.
But is that annual, or is that over the next 10 years? Give me the time.
The time frame is over the next 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10
there
years.
will be approximately 700,000 people that will be exiting the roles of the aviation industry. And I want to go back because I don't want to be remiss in mentioning one of the greatest historical groups in aviation we have in our nation, which is the Tuskegee Airmen. They were also present at that event, and they did a magnificent job of motivating our young people to at least be present and be accountable for their future, no matter what they chose, whether it was aviation or whether it was boxing groceries. Be present, be accountable. So to get back to your question, right now in the year 2025, we had 4 major commercial airlines that made record profits. At the top, we had, I believe it was Delta, and their profits were approximately $63 billion. Right? That was a record profit for that company. Number 3, it was United at $59 million. Number 2, it should be number 3, was American Airlines with $54 million, or billion with a B. And then the last company that was bringing up the rear, number 4, was Southwest with $28 billion, which is a record profit for them. Unfortunately, we this calendar year we lost Spirit Airlines. The judge has decided to disband so they could make good on their bills and their allocations of assets. But one crash, no pun intended, leads to another opportunity. So if we have some very aspiring entrepreneurs that are seeking to start their own airlines, perhaps they can get started with the place that Spirit is vacating within that industry.
There was at some point in time, and I don't know, this might have gone before your time, there's a young man named Derek Price that had made an attempt when we had like Virgin Airline and Spirit Airline and Trump Airline, where they were coming into the industry. And he had wanted to do a black airline. And I think at that time, the movie came out, what was it?
Soul Plane.
Soul Plane.
Yeah.
And I think it made what he wanted to have done seem as if it was buffoonery. And he never was able to gain that traction. But hey, hope is still alive, that we can still look and do those things where not only are we performing the functions, but we are directing and galvanizing all of those talents. And who knows what's going to happen in the next 30 years.
Wow. So I think that is a very valid observation and point, Ms. Sharif. I think the vision for the future when it comes to aviation and ownership and entrepreneurship will truly be, I think, the calling of America. Right? So when Dr. King stood on those steps in 1963, and he talked about when it comes to redeeming opportunities for our community, we need to be at our best, and the nation needs to come through with their part. So the vision for the future, if there's a replacement to whichever venture that this gentleman that you just mentioned has started on, it needs to be put back in place, in my opinion, and it needs to be all-inclusive. I mentioned the 99s, they were there. I mentioned Tuskegee was there. We can't go forward in aviation without mentioning its founding brothers, the Wright brothers, right, who gave us that first vision for what flight could look like back in 1903. Bessie Coleman, right, who had to go to France to get her license. Eugene Bullard, who had to also go to France to get his license. So the vision for the future, as far as I see it, it has to be a very diverse picture of capable and skilled people. And we're going to get down to it right now with educating our young people and exposing them to that.
And I'd like to touch base with the idea of the Tuskegee Airmen and how that came about. And it's really unfortunate that we have forgotten our history. There was a time during conflicts, during wars, that African Americans were always relegated to those positions of support and not active. They were not allowed to be active because they did not think that they had the intelligence and the acumen to do those things that were required by the higher echelons in that arena. And the Tuskegee Airmen showed, as they say, they showed up and they showed out. I believe that their record says that they never lost a bomber. In other words, they were the support. They were not fighter pilots per se, but they had to support those bombers that were on mission. They were the ones that protected them. And I don't think that they ever lost one of those in that escort position that they had. I don't think that they ever lost.
So your assertion is correct, as well as your characterization with one minor adjustment. They did fly fighters.
Oh, did they?
P-51
Okay.
Mustangs, and I believe P-39s prior to that. But you are absolutely correct.
Well,
Of all the sorties that they flew, they never lost a bomber that they escorted, which was remarkable given the adversity that they had to overcome just to get into the seat.
And when I say that they were not fighter pilots, their primary function was for escort and not actually going out and seeking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. That's that little distinction. Oh, baby, they were bad.
Yes, they were.
They did maneuvers that the white folks say, how'd they do that?
But again, even then, you may have had some detractors in terms of advancing the opportunities for the African American fighters. But you still had a good camp of people that were in support of seeing us get up there and perform. And even after they got a chance to see how well they performed and the excellence or the commitment to excellence that they pursued, there was a lot of gratitude that was shared, maybe a bit quietly, but it was still shared because they knew they got a chance to go home because those men were escorting and doing their very best in the air.
Yes, and that is something that we have to, as they say, you don't know what a journey is like until you walk a mile in their shoes.
Yes.
And the degradation and the absolutely humiliation that they suffered being officers, because I think at that time the lowest rank for you to be an aviator was lieutenant, I believe.
That's correct,
sure.
second lieutenant.
Okay.
Yes.
And so they were all officers, and generally in the military, it's my understanding that there's a distinction that officers do not associate, fraternize, socialize, if you will, with the non-officers, the non-enlisted. And because they did not have places and spaces for black officers, these officers were required to go with the enlisted men. So many things that we have lost, things that, and my father was in the military, and one of the things that was so hurting and humiliating to him is that German prisoners of war were allowed to be in the mess halls of the white officers, and there were black folks that could not do that. You know, we have gone through so many things, and so I say now's the time to get all that we can get, but it has to come through understanding. And when we have a person such as yourself that is saying, hey, hope is still alive, and in the words of Reverend Jesse Jackson, keeping hope alive, I do believe that Flightline System LLC is one of those seeds that has been planted, and you have taken on the responsibility, the stewardship of making sure that this grows so that we as a people can grow. I want the listening audience to listen very carefully now. Get out your pens and paper, because this young man is going to tell you what you can perhaps do to get involved in his mission of growing this place and space for the creation of vocations and professions in the aviation field. So what is it that you would like the listeners to do?
Thank you for that. So we are planning our second aviation career day that we will conduct in the middle of the fall of this calendar year. And I'm also remiss in saying we had military recruiters that came to talk about careers for our enlisted folk, for maintenance, avionics, and they were very instrumental in helping us, again, explain different paths. So the point in having it earlier in the year would give our seniors a chance to try and plan the last few months of their senior year of academic success at high school. But to go back to your question, right now we're in the very beginning of planning an aviation academy in the South suburban area, where we'd like to have a lot of middle school students as well as high school students to come out and join and form a few cohorts. We plan to have at least maybe 3 to 5 cohorts per year, and it will be comprised of middle school students and high school students, where you will get drone training, because that's one of the most fascinating and recent technological advancements within the aviation industry, and it's really very accessible. So we'll have drone training 1 and drone training 2. Drone training 2 will lead to you getting a drone certificate, Part 107 certificate, so that you can go out after high school and become employed by a company that does or requires drone video, or you can even start your own company. So the business of aviation is very much alive within beginning in a little heartbeat of Lansing Airport, but we're beginning to open up a lot to South Suburban. And would like for anyone that's interested, they can contact me. They can send me a quick text to my work cell, if that's okay.
Yes.
My work cell number is 312-519-1713. And that's Flightline system. 312-519-1713.
I thank you for that. And in thinking of the drone, and sometimes there are little things that I've had tangential experience with. And I know that you can become licensed as a drone operator before you reach majority. As a matter of fact, I have a young lady that is a part of my medical support team, that her son in high school, and I'm going to see where did he do that and how that happened. He is now down at Southern University. I don't know if he's going into pursuing aviation or any part of aviation, but he at that time was the youngest licensed drone operator, or that was the information I received, and he was like 15. And
that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was just a passion that he had for that. And I'd ask her, was he holding that up? And it always comes down to the dollars, always comes down to the Benjamins. And she said that unfortunately, when it came for him to, because he was then out of that program, and the drone, he needed a drone, and he did not have access to a drone, and did not have the money as a struggling student to own his own drone. So there are opportunities that those of us that aren't going to do it, we can put our money where our mouth is to help people that find themselves in a situation like that, where he had gotten certification, but all certifications have to be renewed. And he was unable to renew his because he did not have the dollars that were required to purchase this drone. So that is
a great point. And I always talk about no matter what you're doing that requires more than just a moment of your time, requires consistency. And in that case, the case you just cited, consistency and maybe funding, and then a commitment. So you have to be committed in order for something to be successful. To your point that you brought up earlier, I was listening to a podcast, and I'll come right back to your point, earlier this morning by Lori Daniels, and in her opening remarks, she was talking about how she played a fellow who was kind of a philosopher, and when I timed in, I didn't quite catch his name, but he used the example that you were talking about, which is planting a seed. Fish don't fly because naturally their inclination and their design is to swim in water. So given the right opportunity and the right environment, we flourish. The trick is, or the challenge is, finding that right gift. So everyone will not be or work in the aviation industry. Everyone will not be a pilot, even though they start out. And that's okay. But along the way, we will identify some that really do have that dedication, that desire to join the ranks of aviation and then proceed to go forward. Now, going back to your point about funding and renewing the license, the sustainment is very important, which is why employment opportunities become ever so important, or joining the right organization where the reoccurring certification is actually covered by your employer. And we're right now, like I said, we're in the very beginning stages of forming our plan, but come late fall, we're going to be ready to go, and we hope to have as many applicants as we can stand. 18 right now, per the FAA Part 107, is the required age to be a certified drone operator. And so again, we're saying by the time you finish high school, you'll be ready to go.
Well, I am so excited about watching this organization grow and expand, and to bring to our community those higher aspirations, expanding our base. You know, everyone is not going to be a rapper, Everyone is not going to be a computer programmer. You know, we tend to, it's almost like these bright lights go, and it's like where the gnats or the candle, you know, you go to the bright light.
Yes.
Rather than, and if you're in those bright lights, that's where everybody else can see you too. So if you stay in the less used or less traveled roads, that may be where you can plant, grow, and not get trampled. So I thank you so very much, Mr. James, the real McCoy, for being my guest today. And would you give the name of your organization as well as a number that they can reach you on?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank this organization, thank the Citizen Press and Media Group for having me here today. The name of my organization is Flightline System, no S, LLC. And I am located right there at wonderful Lansing Airport. And I want to thank the Village of Lansing for the opportunity. You can reach me at my work cell phone number, 312-519-1713. That's 312-519-1713. Mr. James McCoy.
Thank you very much, James.
Remember to make plans to join us again next week for Conversations with the Citizen, the place where real